So, yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for great to see so many people registering for our event. As Mark said, we have some people here in the office as well, which is great. So, thanks everyone for joining. Good to have you. Um, so, before we start, let's get started with a short inquiry, or you see these icons on the screen, and just tell us how you feel working remotely the past 2 years. So you can go ahead and click on the icon you like. No, it's a presentation. Sorry, you can't click. That's a silly joke. But today we'll be talking about feedback, and that's something some of you were just about to give us, maybe. So feedback, it's not a secret that feedback is an important part of our lives. Throughout our lives, we get feedback from all sorts of sources, from our parents, teachers at school, people we work with. We got a lot of feedback from Mark, which is annoying. But we also get feedback from the things we do. For example, when we play games, or when we work on projects, or even when we do stupid things, we learn and we get feedback. So we typically don't see it as feedback, but there is feedback in activities, right? In fact, in everything we do, we get feedback and learn from that. So if you're trying to fit a square in a triangle, it's your brain telling you, well, that won't work. If you fall down the stairs, it's your brain telling you, hold on better next time, right? So feedback is important because it improves, our confidence, it improves our motivation and attainment to basically, anything we're trying to do or achieve throughout our lives. So in the work, in the office, in work environment, we know that feedback is what a lot of people need and seek from their peers and their managers. 65% of people actually says they want more feedback in their job, and that's because we intuitively know that feedback is good for us, and it's something that helps us if we want to improve our performance. And although not all feedback is fun, just as I just said about Mark, but feedback does boost our morale. When we hear we've done something well. When we achieve success, it gives us a great feeling, but success is only confirmed through feedback, of course. So feedback comes in many shapes and forms, and it's also delivered in many different times. If you're giving feedback, you can deliver it episodically, in an isolated instance, or on an ongoing basis. And you often can do it. You can also do it at the end of a project, or provide it on a question-by-question basis. And at work, we address it once annually, of course, in the form of a performance review. And we're heading towards the end of the year, so that's why you're seeing Mark doing his utmost best at this time of the year. But there are many ways to provide feedback to people. But the question is, what is the optimal way for people to consume feedback, to get feedback? And let me just give you a quick definition of feedback, probably from Wikipedia. But feedback is information provided regarding an action, regarding aspects of a performance or understanding. Sorry, and its aim is to engage, inform, and increase knowledge by reducing the discrepancy between the current understanding, performance, and a goal. Now, in short, it's basically a reaction to an action. And that last part is important, because with feedback, the shorter the time between the action and the reaction, the better. Now, in general, feedback is best absorbed if it's instant. So let me elaborate a bit on instant feedback and what it means. Instant feedback is when information is provided contextually and on demand in immediate response to a person's action. After they've given input or done an action, instant feedback serves to reinforce their knowledge by either correcting mistakes or affirming competence or debunking a misconception on a certain topic. So our brain works in the same way. It gives instant feedback when something happens. So I've been doing some constructing in my attic in the past few years, and I can relate to the guy in the picture. I'm quite a hard learner. So my brain has given me quite some feedback, and I've heard myself say idiot quite a few times. But the point is, I knew exactly what it was related to, what wasn't working for me. And I made sure that I didn't make that same mistake again. I learned. So receiving feedback instantly, as opposed to periodically, makes it makes learning an active rather than passive experience. So the more frequent and consistent you can get instant feedback, the better. When you follow up an action with immediate feedback, people can pause, engage, and modify the behavior because they know which action the feedback is related to. So if just imagine working on a project, for example, and then after months concluding that the design was flawed, right? And you need to change things around. Now, you probably have forgotten about some of the things, some of the details of the project, and you will really have to get into it. And that takes time. We all know that. But now, people are working with the solution you built, and it just takes more time, to do it again. So in my example, I had laminate flooring in my attic before I started to divide it up in 3 rooms. And now the plan was to reuse the laminate. And when the rooms were finished, I wanted just to reuse the old stuff. If I didn't have enough, I knew, let me order some, and then I can finish that. And I specifically remember questioning myself and talking to my wife, saying, let's just buy some new laminate. But she managed to convince me that don't do it because this is still looking good. You're throwing away money, etc., etc. So when I was almost finished, I found that I was missing 2 square meters of laminate, and ordered laminate with the same product number, which looked identical on the picture. Only it wasn't the same. It didn't connect my existing laminate. It didn't connect to my existing laminate as it should, and the coloring on the sides was different as well. So frustrating. But
Karma.
yeah, it left me with 2 choices: redo the entire thing, or make it fit. Now, me being lazy, of course, I made it fit and finished my project, but it didn't look optimal. So the morale of the story is, if I was able to get the right information at the start of the project, that would support me in making the decision, I probably would have made a different choice, right? Now, in hindsight, I was left with 2 suboptimal choices, and ended up covering the entire thing. Of course, I learned, too far, never to listen to my wife again. That's one thing. But the timing of feedback is what's important. We need it as soon as possible, and we need it at the right time before we decide to go down a certain road. So in my experience, feedback is the unsung hero of IT, right? We don't give it enough credit. We often we don't get or take time to assess the impact of our actions properly, right? Typically, there's more work than time, and we quickly need to move on to the next project or assignment or whatever. So a lot of the times we are actually doing some educated guessing based on the lessons we've learned in the past, instead of actually fact checking, because we simply can't keep up with the rate of change in IT. And although experience works in a lot of cases, it has bit me in the ass a few times, but things change so fast in IT. And we know feedback helps us and gets us better at what we do, but still we don't prioritize it, and there's a reason. So also there's so many things we can get feedback from to assess our performance. So how do you know which feedback to focus on? And that's a hard part. Well, but one thing can give it away. The questions that you have while working on something are a good guidance for that, especially the what if questions. We all know the feeling of, ooh, what does this button do? And on the other hand, our mind's telling us, no, don't press that button because that's scary, and which makes it exciting. But what if nothing happens? What if something good happens? What if it gets better? So the thing is, by trying, we learn, and we need to push those buttons. We need to look up the boundaries, because that's where the magic happens. Um, and if it, those boundaries tell us what our playing field is, and we sometimes even strike gold. We find something that no one else knew. Even vendors that build applications or build hardware don't know certain things, but you can find those by doing some actual investigation or stuff like that. So in a lot of IT companies, you're called the expert if you read the cover of a manual, and then you have to go on and do some learning on the job. But what that means is you will often go with the road of least resistance. If something works, leave it as it is. Wait until someone starts to complain, and then start to change it around. But that's, then you're not the expert, you're just building stuff. If you had time to answer those what if questions, you would truly become an expert about a certain topic. Now, whether you're building a completely new infrastructure, or updating a business application, or just changing configuration around, you will always have an opportunity to learn by giving into to that curiosity. You only need time, of course, because it's quite time consuming. Well, and especially if you think outside the box, right? There's so many things to do, but yeah, that's as I said, where the magic happens. You can find maybe better ways to do things, more optimal ways to do things. Now, answering every question that's that pops into our mind is a lot of work. We don't have that much time, and we don't get that much time from our bosses typically. So, but the reason it takes so much time is because IT can, there's so many variables that can affect IT. And who are we going to ask for feedback, right? We can't answer, all the questions. We can only answer a certain amount of our own questions. So we have to talk to people that use the IT we're building, end users. But, imagine having to, talk to an end user and ask them for feedback with every change you make. It's quite hard. They might have other things to do. Now, getting the right feedback, as I said, is in IT and is quite difficult because it's so complex and there's so many scenarios. So let me give you an example of how complex it can get. So let's say we have an application with 3 options, and you can either enable or disable those options. So if you only have one option, you've got 2 scenarios. Which one is better, right? Now, if you add a second button, you get 8 scenarios. And with the third option, you even get 16. So simply said, IT can get complex really fast. And depending on the type of application, testing all these scenarios can take quite some time. So just imagine the number of configuration options that a Windows operating system has, or the Microsoft Office suite. Add into the mix all the underlying technology that needs to be updated and changed, and then add those typical business applications. And to finish it off, add change. It quickly becomes too much. And I guess we can agree that it's too much for one person, but even for a team of people to fully understand what's going on. Now, luckily, in practice, we share experience amongst each other. We have people that write best practices on the internet, to help us set up things. Vendors write white papers, and there's a lot of information available. But things can change at any moment, and IT systems are, quite unique from time to time. So, not all recommendations out there and best practices on the internet will work for every environment, and you could be left stranded when you apply them. So with this rapid change and complexity, we need two things to help us keep control. First, we need an anchor point, or something consistent in IT, that's universal across every system out there, and that we can actually measure. Now, luckily, user experience is just that. User experience, or user interaction with IT systems hasn't changed in years, maybe even 30 years since the computer started. We are still looking at a screen 8 hours or more a day and judging if something is fast or slow or functional by looking at that screen, what we see on screen. Now, the second thing is that instant feedback we just talked about to help us make the right choices. And with these two things, we can make sure that our IT is heading in the right direction, no matter where we currently are. So we can see the impact of our actions and then steer if needed. And the anchor point and feedback become even more important when working in a team, right? It works so much easier if everyone receives feedback from the same source and they all see how their actions affect that common goal. When you integrate the feedback through automated testing, you will see that people are more aligned and projects finish more quickly, and you become more confident about the outcomes of a project. Now, in the next few years, we will all be moving to the cloud, one way or the other, I've heard. And there are a lot of IT people, very experienced out there, and even some of them here in the office today. But the rate of change in IT keeps increasing. Just look at the updates that Microsoft pushes out every month. Each of those can affect our IT system. And for services in the cloud, it will increase to a point where even the most experienced people can't keep up, and we're no longer in control when changes happen. So luckily, the cloud is the optimal environment to actually build in automation and automated feedback into processes, because the quest for the balance between functionality, performance, and security will remain even when we move to those platforms. Although IT services are changing, we will always have questions like, am I getting what I was promised, and what is the difference between certain services? And that is exactly where that feedback can help. So how big can differences be, in the cloud? Well, that's hard to say, and it varies from service to service. But let me give you an example of compute in Azure. Now, these two machines cost exactly the same when you configure them in the Azure calculator. They have the same memory size, the same number of virtual CPUs, and run the same Windows installation with exactly the same software and policies or whatsoever. So without changing anything except the virtual machine type, we get a logon difference of 198% and a application performance difference of 326%. That's a huge difference, right? Which I never would have expected by just looking at at the information I had before I actually started testing this. Now, in practice, this means we can service 3 times as many users with one of these VMs. And by doing this testing, we've now learned that we can save money monthly by just answering simple questions and getting the feedback from them. Like, which one should I pick? Or are these machines the same because they look so? Feedback enables us to make that right choice at the right time, and we can truly become proactive. So proactivity is something we've been tasked, IT teams have been tasked with for years now. And we've never been able to deliver it on it exactly. We've been analyzing things after they happen for ages. We're alerted when users start to complain, but can we be when users complain, and we're trying to be proactive with post-mortem data? Well, that's quite hard to do. Now, by integrating the feedback into your decision making and in change management, you can get a continuous improvement flow going. Testing is the new monitoring, and people in IT are starting to realize that slowly more and more. So testing enables you, to achieve that short feedback cycle we just spoke about, and which we desperately need to get information proactively when things are still easy to change. Well, Login Enterprise is not afraid to give you that feedback. It's very direct and precise, and it's not afraid to tell you you've messed up things even at 2 a.m. in the morning. So with Login Enterprise, we really want to give you that anchor point, that platform agnostic solution that will give you the information in a way that everyone can understand, so everyone can speak performance. That is my session for today. Thank you for listening. I hope you could follow what I was saying, and I hope we can speak to each other soon about how we can implement that feedback in your IT. I would just like to say enjoy the rest of the event, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Yeah, and don't walk away just yet.
No, I won't walk away.
Well done. Well done. I could tell, Praparam, you're about as passionate as presenting as you are within the company with all the other cool solutions you're making. So hats off, man. Nice job.
So Praparam cannot hear what you are saying, Blair, but Blair is thanking you for the presentation. There were also some questions coming in from the audience, mainly people who said your slides were beautiful if they could have a copy. So I promised them that they could have that.
Tell him he needs to listen to his wife too, Mark.
Yeah, I actually made a note about it. I'm pretty sure he made that room in his attic, the new dormer with a sleeping couch. He actually showed it because he's making these jokes today. I'm pretty sure he's not allowed back into the house anymore.
Yeah.
But
I actually slept there already, so it's
was nothing to lose anymore.
This is just me getting feedback. I knew this at the beginning, so I built that.
If only you could test your jokes on her before you would anger her.
I tested all my jokes, and then I learned that I should build an attic.
So anyway, one question I had, really technical, well, not too technical, on your slides is you showed the different instances with more than 300% difference in performance.
Yeah.
What's the difference in price?
Nothing.
So you get 300% more or less performance for the same price?
They cost exactly the same.
So even for marketing materials, that's just like numbers you wouldn't dare to put up. Like, nobody's going to believe this, right?
Yeah. No, but it's actually a testing. We're doing some fully automated testing with Login Enterprise on different instances, and there are some interesting findings that can really save you money. By testing different items.
It's so confusing, right? How do you pick the right instance? You have, different regions, you have different sizes. You counted how many instances there were, right?
Yeah, we've
Praparam tests them all.
500 different types.
Yeah, and so Praparam is actually running, I believe, some scripts to go through them all automatically, right?
Yeah.
So expect more that you only had 25 minutes, unfortunately, today. So we're gonna banter and have fun with that
for sure
in the latest session. For now, I believe we're jumping over to our next sponsor break, if I'm not mistaken. And Gary is by NetApp. Excellent. Yeah, so Gary, if you would cue that, then we can get ready for our next speakers. See you in a few minutes.